Welcome to the Dingiston for a brand new creator interview. This time I'm with Sam Quinton, the creator of several comics, but specifically we're here to talk about Rayne of Ages. I'm excited to talk about this. Great to have you here. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the Dingiston.
All right, welcome to the Dingiston, everybody. We're here to talk about some good old indie comics. Where I'm here with the writer of Rayne of Ages. Here's my copies that I picked up from you 2.5 months ago, ish, something like that. And yeah, so this is a fun series. You currently have the 4th issue on Kickstarter live right now.
Yep, we just went live on the 5th at noon, so we're a little more than 2 days into the campaign and like 65% funded, something like that.
That is awesome. The link will be down below for everybody to check out. And yeah, we'll be talking all about what exactly Rayne is. I've known you for, it seems like at least a few years now that I've run into you at different places.
Yep.
I know the main thing that I've known from you was 47 Furious Tales, which is just awesome.
Yeah, we make a few different comic titles, that's for sure. That's our first one, and obviously my baby, so you know.
Yeah, and so I can't wait for more of that. And so just I'm a newer fan to Rayne of the Ages. I definitely enjoyed it, and let's just get into talking about what it's about. But before we do, I want to know a little bit more about like your comic journey. Like what made you want to start making stories?
Okay, so we have to dial the Wayback Machine a good ways back, right? When I was a kid, the only thing I ever wanted to be was an astronaut. The only thing I ever really wanted to be. But all the way through into my teens and whatever, until I finally got to the point where I was not going to be able to be an astronaut. But one of the things I always really enjoyed was comics. So when I was a small little kid, like we're talking 3, 4, 5 years old, my grandfather, who owned a full service gas station, would walk me over to this little store across the street, and they had comics on spinner racks. And I was little, I couldn't read, and he would buy a comic, and we'd sit there, and he'd read a comic book to me, right? Or my dad worked for him, and my dad would sit there and read a comic to me. And so I would get these comic stories of Superman. I usually either got Superman or Spider-Man is usually what they would buy me, right? And then when I got into my teens and I was buying my own comics and such, I was writing a lot at the time. And as I got into my 20s and such, I was writing submissions for different fanzines and submissions to different publishers for role-playing game books. And I didn't really have a good avenue that I knew of to write for comics, but I always thought it would be something I would really enjoy doing. And then in 1999, I opened a comic book shop in Richmond, Kentucky. And the thought process behind that was learn about the comic business and the RPG business and the collectibles business by doing, and get to a point where I could start making my own comics and my own role-playing games. I ended up selling the store, but in 2017, I've told this story, so if people who are watching this know me, they've heard this. I was up late one night. I was rocking my youngest daughter because she had woken up in the middle of the night, and I was rocking her, and I was sitting in front of the computer just rocking her, and I had been looking at stuff because, I've never been someone who's had a lot of money. Money was never really important to me, but I have several children, and it finally occurred to me that I needed to do something not just to get by and raise them up, but I needed to do something that I could leave to them as some kind of legacy. And of all the different careers I've had, I didn't want to go back to any of them other than writing. And so I decided, well, I will start writing role playing game stuff, and then maybe we'll get into comics later. And so I was fortunate enough that I knew people who had graduated from the Kubert School, who are like family to me. Brian Lee specifically is who I'm referring to, and then his brothers James and Rob are also family to me, certainly. And through Brian, I met a number of other students, and we did some books on royalty basis at first, but that really wasn't working well for getting them paid. And one of the things about building something to leave to the kids was I wanted to make sure we had something that was ethical, that they would never have any cause to be ashamed of, that people would be excited to work for, So basically try and put things on the easiest mode possible for them whenever I'm gone and they have the company, right? And we were crowdfunding stuff, and things were getting a little bigger and a little bigger and a little bigger. And we started doing some conventions, and we would go and we would sell, 100 or 200 copies of 47 Furious Tales issue 1, and, copies of The Steel Road until we ran out of the press run. And we ran out of Whispers of Persephone off its press run, and, sold completely out. And you see people getting excited about the product that you're making, and you have other product ideas that come out, and you're building this sense of community. And if you sticking to those same guidelines, things that you can make sure that you're leaving behind to make the kids proud. And the comics journey, particularly starting to work on 47 Furious Tales with Alexia Veldhausen, I think one of the things that was really great about that is that product line has been kind of cursed in a way. Every time we've launched a Kickstarter campaign for a 47 Furious Tales book, the first attempt has failed. All 3 books have failed to fund on the first time. And so we are getting to work again, finally, on issue 4. I'm doing some script revisions again, and we're going to get that to Alexia this month. And hopefully we can break that and get it funded on the first try with issue 4. But working with her particularly taught me a lot about business aspects of it. Certainly it helped me develop my sequential storytelling skills. It's because it's a very different method than writing D&D and RPG content. It's a far different method than writing, novels and novellas and short stories. It's very, very different storytelling type. So you kind of have to have this communication with the artist to where your visual storytelling makes up the bulk of what you're trying to convey to the reader, right? You certainly need to clarify some of the fine points as succinctly as you can in your text blobs. But one thing that we try to do, particularly in 47, I mean, you've read that book, that sometimes we have completely silent pages because we have sections on there where that particular book is meant to emulate the storytelling that you see in the Akira Kurosawa movie. So sometimes the only dialogue in the Akira Kurosawa movie is literally just the sound of the actors breathing, right? And the same thing for 47. Sometimes there's no text bubbles, no explanation, just that fierce, furious samurai action, blades cutting through flesh, people dying, blood being spilled. Sure. And it's finality. It's that tone of it where you don't need to barter with your enemy. You just need to dispose of them. And I think that in Rayne of Ages too, there are times that we use silent pages and just convey the action, because in those circumstances there aren't always times when someone has something to say, and there's no reason in putting words in someone's mouth just to fill space. So you get these moments where maybe they're moving through the woods and something's watching them, and you, the reader, have this awareness of, okay, something's about to pop off, but your protagonists are completely unaware. And so you get to catch them in this moment where they're just kind of in this quiet time in their lives, and then all hell breaks loose, right? So I think there's a point to that storytelling about the unpredictability of adventure, and the dangers of the world that they're in, and that not everything is going to involve these life altering communications. I think that for the most part, we have normal bad puns with each other, friendly jesting, funny little moments that happen just because some things don't work out the way you want to. Like when your ass catches on fire because your friend fireballs a monster that you're sitting on, and burns a hole in your trousers. That kind of thing, that kind of visual gag, that kind of, oh, there are consequences to the actions. I think that there is a real value in providing that. And I, for one, as for my comic book journey, I love that we've gotten to the point where I can write that kind of thing, and the people that I'm working with are like, okay, yeah, I get where you're going with this,
Sure.
and it's a very, very satisfying thing. And if I had to say, I would say that the getting into writing comics as an indie creator and having the freedom to do whatever the hell I want has been a real luxury. But getting to work with professionals like Alexia Veldhausen, Brian Lee, Christian Martinez, Nick Capone, oh my God, that man's phenomenal. Damian Torres, Dakota Erhan, these people are not just a pleasure to work with; they're a real privilege to work with. I'm very, very fortunate.
It's awesome. That's great. So you did touch on a little bit of things that you've like learned throughout your journey, but anything in particular that like really stands out to you that you've learned as far as how this process works, or just from your experience that stands out?
You have to be willing to take constructive criticism, and you can't be thin-skinned about just people being dicks. Okay, so sometimes people are just gonna say shit to you because they don't like what you did. And so I think that part of that is understanding that you cannot and never will be able to please everybody. I'm a big advocate for telling the story you want to tell. But I'm also a big advocate for providing material that your fans, and that's still a weird word for me to use, but for fans that they want to read. And so the fun part about this is that when you find out that the people who are reading your stuff are actual fans of your work because they like the story that you're telling. And so you're not having to put something on. And I think that one of the things I've really learned from that is that in a sense, maybe the indie writer has it a little easier than, say, someone writing for Batman or Superman or Wonder Woman. You have your canon for your IP, and you tell the story that you want. Now, you're going to have consequences for that, certainly. You might have sales that are really strong on one particular title line, but maybe you might have one particular issue where the fans don't like where you went, and you don't have an excuse to fall back on. That was all your choice. You're not following a character Bible that was written in the 60s.
Right.
So I in a lot of ways, it is working without a net, but I think the big takeaway is, as an indie writer, being true to yourself, you'll find your fans. Now, there might be 50 of them, or there might be 5,000 of them, or maybe even more. But being true to the image that you're wanting to portray, you're going to find that there are other human beings out there who find the same thing interesting that you're interested enough about to write about.
Nice. Awesome. All right. So let's actually delve into what Rayne is.
Sure.
I have let's see here. I have right here the main cover A for issue 4 up on the screen right now. And anyway, what is like, what's the origins of Rayne? Like, how did Rayne come together?
So the origin story is kind of funny. All right. So Nick Capone, who's my co-creator with Rayne of Ages, knew that basically at that point, the entire time he'd known me, I didn't sleep more than 3 or 4 hours a night. So one night at about 2:30 in the morning, he calls me. just calls me at 2:30 in the morning, and it's on weekdays, so I gotta be up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I haven't gone to bed yet because I was working on a RPG project, right? And he said, "Dude, I want to do a comic with you. I want you to write a comic for me." I'm like, "Okay, so let me ask, do you want just to co-create with me, or do you want to hire me to write something for you?" He's like, "I want to co-create with you. I do not know. I want to do a bad girl book of some kind." I'm like, "Okay. How about a fantasy series?" He's like, "Cool." He's like, "Why did you bring it up?" I said, "Well, we've got the fantasy setting for the D&D adventures, the tarot adventures. We can plop the fantasy adventure down in the tarot adventures, and then I can stick like little Easter eggs of lore in the comics for the D&D adventures." He's like, "All right, cool." I'm like, "What?" I said, "Do you have a name picked out?" He's like, "No." I said, "Do you know what type of character you want?" He's like, "No." I'm like, "Okay." I said, and I thought for like 5 minutes. Now, mind you, it's like 2:30 in the morning, right?
Sure.
And I'm like, "Okay." In the tarot adventures, there's this ancient order of elven mystic warriors that are basically presumed to be extinct along with the Elven Empire, right?
Okay.
What if we had a story that starts at that point, and then we do something that displaces one of these Brochelle and Rochelin warriors, and we put them in the current era of the tarot adventures, so that their empire is wiped out and they're kind of lost out of time, and they have to rediscover the land of the tarot adventures. That way, we get this exploration kind of adventure series, and we can tell a story about what's going on, and then we have all this content laid out ahead of us from the stuff I have prepped for the adventure modules that we can utilize, and all the lore and stuff. He's like, "Oh, hell yeah." I'm like, "All right, cool." So we batted around a couple of different names that I don't even recall. And then one of us was like, I think it was Nick, was like, "What about Rhea?" or something like that. And I was like, "What about Rayne?" But we spell it differently, so it's a little more exotic, like Ray, like Rayne or Rayna. And we ended up selling the pronunciation Rayne, but Rayne. I'm like, "All right, cool." Sure. So we'll do an elf member of the Brochelle and Rochelin. We'll make her a brand new member, so that we can slowly break out some of the lore. And now, how are we going to displace her? He's like, "Portal." I'm like, I don't know. I said, "We get a lot of portals and a lot of everything. Why don't we do it the hard way, like a Sleeping Beauty kind of thing?" He's like, "How are you gonna make that work?" I said, "We'll turn her to stone." He's like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah, we'll turn her to stone." And I'm like, "All right, let me write." And so about 7 days later, I put a script in front of Alexia Veldhausen. I paid her to edit it. Alexia looked at it. She's like, "Okay, dude, you still doing this thing that you're doing with your storytelling? You need to stop that. Fix this and this. Fix this and this. Rewrite that, and then we'll send it to Nick." All right, cool. So Nick, in the meantime, is working on the initial character design of Rayne, and then the group, Lalandra, Uta, and Dedelia, right? And I sent him like descriptions based on like ethnic choices that we wanted, different stylizations and hairstyles we wanted to model after, character class concepts, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so he took those and worked on that. And we got the first script, and refined it a little bit after a couple of conversations between me and Nick and Alexia. We got it down to the 28 pages, and then the bonus content that we put into it. And we were like, "Let's go to Kickstarter." And people dug it. We got funded. We got Taylor Esposito on letters. We had a variant cover by JP Buzio, which we actually have a few of those left, and they're available on the current Kickstarter. I didn't realize we had those remaining, so that was a neat find when I was going through inventory. But people liked it, and then we did issue 2, and then issue 3 came out, and people really. And we went to launch issue 4, but it was right around the really tumultuous time on Kickstarter in the world in general, because we had the election and then the transition into the new presidential campaign, and there's just been so much in national politics and local politics that just not as many people were hitting Kickstarter at that time, and so we fell short of the goal, and we were going to relaunch, but in 2025 I lost some very dear family members, and that kind of put me on the sidelines for 2025 for the most of it, other than a few convention appearances, like 2 convention appearances. But then we are back strong. The book is already done, so people aren't even waiting. We're shipping in July, so people are going to get their books, and it's going to be neat. We'll have.
Oh yeah, no, go on.
I'll say we'll have that ready, and Nick is actually getting the script for issue 5 this week.
Excellent. No, I was just going to say we can go through and show everybody what the Kickstarter looks like. Cool. So everyone knows what to expect from what exactly this entails here.
And I've fulfilled over 20 campaigns on Kickstarter alone, and we've also fulfilled on Indiegogo, on Crowdfunder, on Fund My Comic. We've had campaigns from as small as like $150 to over $9,000. And actually, we had a campaign that myself and Zach Viola decided to do in November of like 2018. We wanted to do something for Christmas for a D&D book. And we hit upon this idea and put it out at the very last minute. It was like right after Thanksgiving, and we didn't reach goal. And Zach and I were talking, and we decided just to go ahead and send out the digital copy to all the backers and the print-on-demand code to them anyway. And so we didn't even succeed on that Kickstarter, but everyone got the book. So that was pretty neat.
Sure. Nice. So here we have a preview of the show the different covers there, and then art here.
Yeah, for our interior pages.
Yeah. I'm curious. What was the main idea behind making something that's all black and white like this? Like, I think very manga. Was that
right? And that was one thing that Nick Capone really wanted to do. He wanted to do a black and white book. Okay. He wanted to show off his art capability as a penciler and inker, because he primarily works as a colorist for a lot of not just for me, but for a lot of different companies, Dynamite and a few others. Okay. And of course, he's also an instructor. He's been an instructor at the Kubert School for many, many years. He teaches coloring and other things there, but primarily coloring. Nice. But this was a chance for him to flex and to build an art style. And he modeled this. We were talking about what kind of we want to do with the art. Mm-hmm. And so he modeled this kind of after a combination of different manga influences, and then some of the 1990s Bad Girl books, kind of blending the style a little bit together. Okay. So we went, and like the ear choices were basically inspired by anime like Those Who Hunt Elves and Lodos War, things like that. And then the armor selections were inspired by 90s costumes, as well as different D&D influences and manga influences that you see for like some of their RPG scene. It's been like, for example, Rayne has way too much hair that you would ever want on an adventurer, but that's that 90s influence that's going on there. We have a lot of big hair going on here, but yeah, the art selection, this is all Nick. Now Nick is actually signing over everything for Rayne of Ages to me. 5 will be the last book that he does interiors on. He's focusing on his development of Sky Maiden Studios. We have an artist who's going to be taking over effective in book 6, which is going to be a slightly different format, because we're going to be doing, instead of as we've done here and break this introductory story arc into these 5 pages, we're going to be fitting an entire story arc into one book. Now that book's going to be a bit thick, so it's going to take a little bit to get that together. But I'm looking forward to that. I'm hoping that we can have that out by the end of 2027.
Nice. That's exciting. Yeah. I definitely hope that it works out and that we get it and all that.
And Nick did a few little interesting things with this. When he wanted to have a flying airborne enemy in this issue, because he wanted to show off some aerial combat scenes, and I thought that was a cool idea. So we landed on a Harpy as our main bad guy element in this. Mm-hmm. And like we were talking about earlier, just completely ambushes the entire party and snatches up the smallest party for a tasty snack. And so Dedelia is in that bite-sized range, right, for a big old monster. So snatch her up and run off. And then we get our interactions with our surprised adventurers who are there, like, well, we can't have them eating our companion, and the fight is on. The fun part about this is that, well, I'm not going to do spoilers. People will enjoy it when they read it. But if you're following along in the different issues, you'll see that we keep, like, some of the magical invocations are kept very specific to those particular characters, right? And so you'll see that Lalandra, most of her incantations are spaced in Latin, right? And then we have some of the ones from that Rayne is doing are actually based in traditional Tolkien Elvish. So so really cool. Although we spell them out in anglicized format, because otherwise people would just be really pissed off that they couldn't read what was going on. But yeah, it makes for some good times. And then issue 5 gets to showcase Uta and Delia a little bit more because of what happens at the end of issue 4, which I always hate ending on like that cliffhanger kind of note for this. But going back to where we're doing the entire story in one book for this will alleviate that, certainly.
Sure. Yeah, no, I was just flipping through all of them, just, kind of remind myself what kind of was in each one of them. And yeah, issue 3 ends into place where it's just like, all right, you know what's happening here in 4.
Yeah. So. Yeah, because we end on that injury, and then if you look, and when you're looking at the Kickstarter campaign, you'll see that that's the first thing we address here is where they're rescuing Rayne from the calamity that happened in issue 3. And the nice part too is, like, I always try to make sure that we make our crowdfunding campaigns as affordable as we can so that people can get into it. And because you and I have talked at conventions about this, I actually don't really make money on the Kickstarter campaigns. They're just to, finish the project, pay for the press run, get things shipped to people, that kind of thing. But then I make my money that I invest back into other projects from convention appearances and shipping to stores and things like that. So there's not a reason to really, try and overcharge or something. Like, you can get all 4 issues in digital through the campaign for just $10.
Yeah, let's show that here. Everybody can see. I think that's such a great deal. I've been finding myself that, like, a lot of times just getting PDFs is a great way to support the creators, especially if, like, creators that aren't based here in America, and then you have to pay, like, just as much for shipping as it is the book.
Oh, well, sometimes more. Like, we've got we've got fans in a lot of other countries. Some of them we can't even ship to right now. Like, we can't ship to our fans in the UAE right now. Omar, man, if you're seeing this, like I said, I've already got it marked. I'm setting the book aside for you. And then we got a couple people in Israel that normally back for us. And then Qatar, not Qatar. What's the other one? Saudi Arabia. But there's places we can't ship to due to the current conflict with Iran. And then there's, for the last few years since the Ukraine war started, we haven't been able to ship to any of the people who back us in Ukraine or in Russia. So that's been kind of a pain. But there's some other countries that we can't ship to right now anyway due to different international tensions and stuff like that. So I actually had to put a list on this to let people know. But I've messaged the people who I have in our distribution lists about, hey, if you want this issue, I'll set aside the Kickstarter copies for you, so that once we're able to ship to you, we can go ahead and put those as add-on for you in another campaign or something. Which is kind of hard, even for me. Like, my entire customer list is about 700 different people as far as stuff I've shipped to, which is not a lot, right? But trying to keep track of that, when some campaigns we have like 100 something people, some we have like 280, 270, whatever. It's kind of hard to keep track of. But being able just to say, hey, I know I've got people here in Israel, and I look at the list, and I'm like, hey, I can message those guys real quick. Hey, Omar and I messaged through Kickstarter. That's easy. He's a funny dude. He's the guy I was telling you about with the Whispers of Persephone book that got banned.
Oh,
in the
okay.
UAE. Yeah, that's Omar. He's a trip, man. He's a trip. Screw the man. I want my D&D book. He's something. He is something.
Everybody needs D&D in their lives.
I know, right? But yeah, this we've got little sprinkles of Easter egg lore sprinkled through this, and it's been very, very little in this introductory arc, right? Like you've seen like the introduction of the commander and the elf queen. So you've got this sense of devotion that the Brochelle and Rochelin have to the queen, the lore behind the sword. We've sprinkled a little bit into that, and we definitely have more coming in issue 5 than we do in this one. Because this one is basically, for want of a better way to put it, this is mostly one big ass fight scene. Because this battle with the Harpy is pretty intense. I'd put it on par with the battle we had in issue 3.
Oh wow! All right.
Yeah, I mean that how that one went. That one was pretty.
Yeah,
that was pretty brutal.
Right. It was. That's cool. I didn't realize. So like I looking through it, I'm like, okay, I knew this was like obviously very like D&D inspired. I didn't realize that it was actually part of your own tabletop world that you made and all that, which is really cool.
Yep.
And so I find that to be really cool and honestly a little inspiring as well, as a DM with their own fantasy world that I'm very attached to. And so.
And the tarot adventure books are meant to be ported into any world setting for you, because they are just like a generic fantasy stuff, but they have very regionally specific details that you can easily import. You've seen the RPG, the 3rd edition of it, because we had sold out of everything. We had a reprint for the 3rd in the series. Sure. We've got the 4th one I'm working on right now. After an incredibly long hiatus, I'm hoping that people will still enjoy it. But the thing about it, having those little bits of sprinkle of lore, make things so convenient for your DMs, because they don't necessarily have to lead somewhere I want them to lead, but they can make great hooks for the DM who's running the game for his friends to take them someplace that he thinks that they might enjoy to go, right? And at the end of the day, when you're talking about those RPG books, the key part about that is your customer satisfaction. You have to have your game master who's buying your adventures has to have an experience that's nice enough that he's willing to go ahead and support that, because it's, as a game master, you want to get your own ideas out, but sometimes having an adventure module is just handy. Maybe you're still working on something that you want to take the players to, but you're not in a space right now that really makes sense yet, so plopping them into something else makes for a good filler. And the other thing on the other side of that equation is something that the players feel challenged by and rewarded through. So for anyone who's watching this, if you pick up the tarot adventure stuff on drive-through or whatever, just remember, as it says in the descriptions, these are deadly difficult level adventures for the age range, for the level they're recommended for. So when it looks like you're like, holy crap, these goblins murder these guys in their sleep. Yes. Deadly level difficulty. When we did the first set of play tests for the first tarot adventure book, we had 8 different groups. I didn't run in any of them, just guys I knew in their individual groups. And the first time they ran through, 6 of them had TPKs in the same encounter.
Oh.
And that's why we play test, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm like, that might be too much. So we dropped one goblin out of it, and they redid it. And then we only had 2 TPKs. I said, okay, what happened? And the same thing. Neither case the parties set a watch that night. I'm like, well, that would explain it. That's how you get your throat cut in the middle of the night, not having a watch set.
That's great.
Go to sleep and wake up dead.
See, that's funny, because all my D&D experiences, people make sure to fill that role.
Yeah.
And so, actually, I have a little funny D&D tangent on that, where one of my characters, got our stuff stolen because we just randomly slept on a stage, and so the one time that we didn't do anything like that.
Yep.
Well, that's what happens when you don't pay for a room at the end.
We had for the one of the play tests for Death Comes to Glenfollow, the third in the series, the book that you saw. We had a bard in one playtest group who was hitting on the main bad guy because he didn't realize it was the main bad guy because she's not an obvious antagonist. She's a serial killer. And we have a serial killer in our our third tarot. And so she took him home and he was like, I'm going to get lucky. It's going to be cool. And poisoned him with a paralytic that doesn't do anything to numb the pain, ritually sacrificed him over the course of several hours, animated his dead body as a zombie and turned him loose. And then when the party asked where he'd gone later, she's like, I don't know. He left last night. I said goodnight to him and he left. And then like, okay, they went looking for him and of course got attacked by his zombie. So that was fun. That was a lot of fun. When I heard him telling about it, he's like, man, they were so, and then that same group, because he and I were talking about this, that same group, they absolutely never suspected the main bad guy. And so that main bad guy went around just murdering all kinds of villagers, animating basically a big ass zombie horde. And they were just having tremendous trouble dealing with it. And so at one point, he's like, the party just said, okay, hold on a second. They went to the local lord. He's like, we got to leave. This place is cursed. Everything's bad. Grab your shit. We're leaving. And they grabbed the local lord, the local priestess, this other dude, and the bad guy and decided to flee. And so they're leaving. And he's like, I was looking at the stuff on these NPCs and the details. And I'm like, I think these guys would probably go over to this monastery over here. I'm like, yeah, probably. He's like, okay, so they were traveling, and like at the next morning when everyone woke up and everything was cool, no big thing going on or anything. They're like, okay, so the priest and the Lord and the other dude, they're like, okay, we're gonna go to the monastery of St. Lawrence, and we're gonna see if we can get some help. You guys, you guys take this stuff that because they had like a few treasures. You guys take this with you. Go to this town over here and wait till we get there, and we'll hire some people and come back and take our town. I'm like, all right, cool. And so the three people that they were trying to save, other than the bad guy, left, leaving just the party. And mind you, their bard's still a zombie somewhere running around because they weren't able to put it down. They ended up running away from it.
Yeah.
And in the middle of the night, she when they made camp the next night, she offered to cook, poisoned the whole freaking team. Everyone failed their save. She murdered, sacrificed all of them, animated all their corpses, and that was the end of that adventure.
Oh my god. That's
so
great.
They had a TPK because they were absolutely convinced that it wasn't a bad actor. They were convinced that it was a curse. And nothing they rolled, nothing that they asked about, nothing they did disproved that. And so just they had this whole kind of mutual consensus that obviously the area was cursed. They don't know how to deal with it. They need to get away and regroup and save as many people as they can. And so they got ran out on the rail with the zombie horde shambling around behind them. And they're like, we got to get out of here. So
that's great.
He told me that. I laughed my ass off. But now the next time they ran it, the players were, of course, aware that this particular person is not who she appeared to be. And so they played through and they asked a little more pointed questions. And eventually she ended up killing half of them anyway and successfully escaped. And they were really pissed about it. And now, mind you, this adventure came out in 2020. That group is still playing, and they're like 16th, 17th level right now. And I was talking to him the other day. He's like, do you have another adventure with that bad guy in it? I said, well, she's in Whispers of Persephone as a source book, and her stats are the same in that. But if you want to run against her, she would probably trick one of the other cultists or try and trick them into taking on one of the other cultists because she's on the run from the cult. Yeah. And so he pitted his group against one of the necromancers from the Stygian order, and they're like, "We got these necromancers. We got this zombie skeletons, no freaking problem." Until they ran into someone who wasn't just like 5th level; they were like 15th. Instead of having zombies and skeletons, they had enslaved vampires and Stygian mummies, and that was an entirely different set of problems to have. So
That's funny.
yeah,
Always great hearing D&D stories.
yeah, yeah, because the Stygian mummies tend to look human. They tend to look like they did before they died, because the process of that mummy, they preserve their beauty. And the lore in Whispers of Persephone, one of the sections, one of the necromancer cultists had created several of them and used them to infiltrate a target city by having them work at a brothel. And so they systemically, quietly murdered several different guardsmen who were believed to have deserted, but in fact they had been murdered, and then their corpses conveniently smuggled out of the city to add to the undead army.
There you go. Great. I love it. Yeah, no, that's awesome. So, like, one of the questions I had about it is because I was like curious about like so much of that world and stuff that you had, or that you made, because in issue 3 you do get to see a map.
Yes.
And I was curious too of like how much of that is there of the land that it encompasses.
Well, let me show you. Hold on a second. If I had known that, I'd have it right in front of me. Give me just a moment. I'll get something.
Excellent. All right.
So when I say we make tabletop role-playing game stuff, what I mean to say is we make tabletop role-playing stuff.
Oh my god.
So this is the player version.
Okay.
Okay? No hex grid. It hides the secret locations. And we've got smaller versions of this, obviously.
Yeah.
This is the DM version with the hex maps and the hidden locations.
Cool. Oh, that's so cool. That's awesome.
Yep, and we have those. There is, so for example, there's stuff in here that we haven't revealed in the Tarot Adventures yet. There's stuff that denotes in the Tarot Adventures, through course of play, people can be granted land. There's sections about that. The creeks and certain other locations are named after. Some of them are named after campaign backers, not people who paid to be on it, just people who have backed a lot of our campaigns. We've got things in here that like Turner's Tomb. Mr. Turner, Dr. Turner, was a early backer of like the first 6 or 7 of our campaigns, and then the last campaign I shipped to him, we got the confirmation it had been delivered, and then about a week later I got it back in the mail, and the postman had written on there, recipient is now deceased. And I was like, oh man.
Yeah.
So we named Turner's Tomb for Dr. Turner.
Nice tribute.
Yeah. And then Bishop's River is from a guy I know online. Hayden Lake is from a friend I play Shadowrun with. Anderson River is from one of our Kickstarter backers. Watson is from a friend of mine who's now deceased. He wasn't when we named it about that. Kennan's Keep is from a friend of mine in real life. La Torre de la Cascada de Sangrea is named after a friend of mine down in Puerto Rico. He named it. I guess I should say it's not named after him. It's the Tower of Blood, basically. And then, of course, Glenfollow Keep, named after the setting. And in different locations, they're key in some of the different adventures. Like Cyrus Forest. I guess you can't see over that.
No, not.
Sorry about that. Yeah. I'm sitting here pointing at stuff, and then you guys can't see from the next story. Cyrus Forest is over here. The Elderwood, which you recognize from Rayne of Ages, over here. And then the Ruins of the Keep. And again, this is on the hidden map that the DM has. So
Nice.
And we actually crowdfunded these and got these out to people. I think during the first or the second campaign. So
Nice.
that was kind of neat.
That's really cool. I always love like deep, rich worlds. Like I love the world building first and foremost when it comes to all the big worlds and stuff there is, and so that's awesome to see how all that there is to it and things I didn't even know was there at all.
And this does a lot too as a writer because it kind of serves as a character Bible of sorts for the setting.
Sure.
Right? So that you can look back and say, okay, when I'm writing that they're going here, which direction do they need to be going? Which direction does the sun need to be in when we're putting it in Rayne of Ages? And there's some things that aren't on the map that are referenced because they're outside of that area. Like this one, when it's hexed out, every hex is like 1 mile, right? So this is 24 by 36 miles, basically. So it's a pretty big area to play in. Enough that you can sprinkle different kind of encounters and it make environmental sense. And it gives you plenty to explore. And enough for the DMs to drop unique stuff of theirs. Like you can put the tomb of someone that you've referred to in your homebrew in there with no trouble because there's so much space.
Yeah.
And then anything that's referenced in the adventures that's outside of that, or that's referenced in Rayne of Ages that's outside of that area, you see how you can easily say, okay, well, if it's not here, it's going to be on this western end of the map over here. Or maybe it's going to be south out towards St. Lawrence's Monastery or whatever. And that goes a long way, I think, towards helping with the consistency of it for people who are reading the comics, and then certainly for the people who are playing through the Tarot Adventures. So Rayne really, in that sense, does a lot for those books, even though there's, like I said, there's only 3 adventures out right now, but people who go to play through the adventures again, they'll see little things in this comic series. Oh, okay, so this is one of what the Rochelle and Rochelin were like, and this is kind of their thing. And oh, wait a minute, this is what we're seeing with some of the architecture and some of the spell casting that their people did. Like in issue 1 where they grew all the trees together to block out the undead horde, right? So I think there's a lot to be said for that kind of depth in the storytelling.
That's awesome. So I did want to ask about one thing, particularly with your world, is you with the different characters using the different kinds of magics. It seemed like it was possibly like your own sort of take on what magic could be. So, like, how is it that you would say yours is different, or what stands out about that with how magic is approached in your world compared to some other things?
So I think we're very heavily influenced on this by 2 different RPG game mechanics. The first one, of course, being D&D, and the second one being Ars Magica from Atlas Games. The Latin incantations are primarily an influence of the Ars Magica RPG. Although the spells that we're using aren't taken from there. In fact, we try to avoid duplicating specific spells so that we kind of retain this sense of wonder about, okay, what is that spell? And give people a reason to say, okay, so this makes sense about what it would do mechanically, but that might be like a 3rd level spell in D&D, or it might be a 4th order spell in Ars Magica. And the idea that magic is a tool, right? And not necessarily a common one. Like there's things where we see that the adventuring team, when they revived Rayne, they used a particular magic item that was obviously a finite resource. When they had combat with different foes throughout the 1st and 2nd and 3rd issue, you'll see that they're utilizing different tactics, different techniques to their particular strengths. And everything from the size of the opponent versus the size of the protagonist to what it takes for them to yield some kind of effect. Things shouldn't just instantly solve a problem. There should be a challenge that faces a very real consequence. I think we did that pretty well in issue 3 with the consequence that we saw with Rayne in that big fight. In this one, we kind of see more of a battle that goes much better for the team than it did in issue 3, but certainly was a close call had there not been a couple of key things going on, particularly with Lilandra in this. If Lilandra hadn't been on the ball. And then also Dedelia, if Dedelia hadn't shown the same kind of cunning that she demonstrated in issue 1, issue 2, and issue 3 with her small blade weapons, that really saves her life in issue 4. And in issue 5, we'll see what happens with that then. But don't want to give too much away on that.
For sure.
But the honestly, the whole depth of the storytelling, I try to give people the best story I can give them, and I try to tell the story that we're trying to tell. I don't know if that really answered the question you're looking for.
No,
I may have deviated too much.
You're good.
I'm getting on some wild tangents. I'm sorry.
You're good. The first half of that answered it, or something like that.
I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. So the only other main question that I really have here is, and you've touched on this a little bit of like, you have issue 5 and then you're planning on doing something bigger with issue 6.
Mm-hmm.
But then from there, it's like, I imagine, is this something that you just want to keep on going as long as you can?
I mean, yeah. I mean, if people lose interest in it, then we can shelve it for a while and come back to it later if we want to. I do want to make it clear to people that we are not going to be able to do a monthly release schedule on Rayne of Ages.
Sure.
Or really any of the comics. Just as a very small indie outfit, the cost is very prohibitive. So, for example, like Tipping Your Time Traveling Psychedelic Mushrooms, issue 2, just the art and lettering budget on that, not counting the printing or anything like that, is over $10,000.
Jeez.
So, yeah, and that's pretty typical for comic book expenses, right? Now, some people say, well, you can get someone to do it in the Philippines for like $20. Yeah, but I'm not hiring people in the Philippines. I'm hiring people in the U.S., people I want who are professionals who I want to keep working with and producing, sharp quality. And you see that in 47 Furious Tales. I think you clearly see it in Rayne of Ages. And you definitely see it in Tipping Your Time Traveling Psychedelic Mushrooms. And we see it in Necroholic by Brian Lee, even though I'm publishing for him rather than writing for him. A commitment to quality is very, very important. We want readers to know when they're going to pick up a Sonopa publishing book that they're going to have some substance.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of good things to say about just a lot of the indie space in general. You kind of have to. There's certain guidelines there. When you're picking up a comic from your local comic store, obviously go support those. But then when you go actually support these indie books elsewhere, there's a reason why they're little higher priced than your normal book. But it's just like what you have to do, right? Mm-hmm. And $10 I feel like is the kind of especially with standard.
Yeah, especially with crowdfunding, especially the crowdfunding book, because you've got you're basically funding a larger production, right? You're not you don't usually have like a huge press run already done and then you're filling it out. Like with this particular campaign, probably the end of next week, I'll actually right at the end of the campaign's only 14 days total. We have like 11 and a half days left. Probably about with a day or two left, I'll go ahead and I'll have a pretty good idea how many copies we're going to need for the press run for this. Yeah. And then I'll go ahead and get those ordered. And we'll over order so that Nick has some copies and I have some copies. Mm-hmm. We sell those books and it helps raise money for the stuff we need for like the next one. Yeah. And then and you've seen it too, when we've brought Kickstarter edition books to conventions, we usually have those at like $5, right? Because that's more of that. But the actual folks who are creating these, they get the books first before anyone. They get a lot of other considerations, I guess I should say. We don't have stretch goals in this campaign because we're just going to get it done and get it out. But we have other things that are available to them that you don't see when we were at the conventions, right? There's covers here that weren't available there for previous issues. And not just that too, but we take a lot of feedback from the community. People really, really like the Not Safe for Work cover that we did with issue 3 particularly. But with Kickstarter's current stance on Not Safe for Work content, it just wasn't a good idea for us to have one for this. Now we have a gorgeous one that we had done for Tipping Your Time Traveling Psychedelic Mushroom issues 2. I'm not sure how we're going to be able to use that yet, but that kind of feedback from the community is absolutely critical. It doesn't really influence the story, but it can influence the production. So it can influence in some ways, like different choices on art. It can influence in time certain compositions for covers, right? So, for example, the issue you see right below this on the bottom of the screen, you've got the first 3 covers by Aisha Gulsanev, right? And so we have this dynamic combat one in the first one, and we have a lot of people saying, well, we'd like to see something that shows her more in a triumphant mode, right? And so hence we got the Aisha, and then they wanted something maybe a little more sensual, something a little more at rest. And so we have her sitting by the river cleaning the blood off her sword, right? So we've responded pretty well, I think, to feedback from folks. And then, of course, from there, we had a lot of people who wanted to see Lalandra on a cover, which is where we came up with the cover for, Aisha's cover for issue 4, right? So Lalandra here with the big ball of fire overhead, about to bring it right down on the head of the harpy. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
And Aisha was given a lot of leeway on this. Nick did some sketches for not sketches. That's not the right word. He had pages that were drawn of that character for the character design, got them to Aisha, and so she could keep it consistent with the overall character design that Nick was going with.
Awesome.
Then they're both Cooper School graduates. They graduated. I think Nick graduated the year she did, or the year after, or something like that, somewhere around there. So they've worked together a lot before as well. They know each other really well, and having that personal and professional capability really gives us some great benefits. And she respects the character designs enough to keep them consistent with what we're seeing in her own art style. Now, they're not going to be exactly right because this is her art style as opposed to Nick's, but I think it's just as valid, and it's really true to the story we're telling.
Yeah. No, I think continuity is important, right? Having everything look the same, and something that even the big companies struggle with. So,
yeah.
But yeah. So I don't think we completely went everything.
Oh, sorry.
Through here.
I talk too much, man. I'm sorry.
You're all good. But yeah, so you were talking about getting all the PDFs for $10. I gotta say, I think that's an awesome deal, that being able to get physicals for 10 each, or 20 for both of them, or being able to get all for 40.
And that's not a mock-up. I took that picture in my living room.
There you go. Gotta have an authentic picture there.
Yeah. This was by JP Buzio, the variant cover, the Virgin variant cover we did for issue 1. I think we only printed like 200 or 250 of these. We've used this as an art print that we've included with some other campaigns as well, but it's a gorgeous cover. In fact, do I have that here? No, I might have it. No, I think I've got it in the other room because I've segregated the stuff so that we could
Sure.
make sure. So that cover that's the next one down, is that one right there.
Oh, nice. Hold on, let me.
Isn't that gorgeous? That's Nick.
Yeah,
That's Nick Capone right there.
that's awesome. That reminds me very, I don't know, it just give me like a Zelda vibe with that. So I like it.
A lot of different inspirations that come off of that
I
one
can see
too.
that.
Zelda, maybe a little bit with the and Evangeline covers from the 90s. I can see a little bit of Witchblade influence in that too.
Yeah.
So definitely Nick just showing off, for want of a better word. He's the man's got the chops.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is fantastic.
And this is the Virgin variant of the issue 3 from Aisha. I think we've got a total like 43 or something like that. So we made 40 of them available.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Awesome stuff. Some options there. Like I said, great ways to get into it. I think you make the digital tiers very affordable, which is awesome. And worth checking out. And
for the physical, we use really high quality paper product. I don't know if you noticed that with the books that you got from there. The idea is we want to make sure that people can enjoy the book for years to come, and that it looks good and that it holds up pretty well. Issue 1, oh Lord, when was issue 1 brought out? 2021, 2020? I don't remember now. It's been 2021, I think, maybe 2022. And those books still look amazing.
Yeah, they are really good. That went through my head of thinking like what you were using it all for that. It does feel really good. It's really nice stuff throughout all of it that everybody can see with it. So awesome stuff. Excellent. I don't know. That's all my questions that I have. We've been on here for a bit talking about Rayne. All good.
I'm long-winded, man. I'm sorry.
No, you are all good. A good juicy video that I hope everybody enjoyed. Do you have anything else you want to say though?
Yeah. All of our stuff that we offer commercially is 100% human made. I'm a big believer in art being a human effort. I understand that there's a lot of people who do use AI as a tool to certain effects. I'm not going to argue about that. But we are also going to be coming out later this year with a number of different titles, including our first magazine, Art by Humans, featuring art by a wide variety of artists I've worked with in the past, and interviews from each of them concerning what their thoughts are on AI in use in arts, their take on working as a professional artist. And we're hoping to do at least one of those every year, release it as an annual product. I think it's going to be really cool. And we've got cool. An interview from Pete Vasquez, who is someone who I've worked with. He has designed the Tibian or time traveling psychedelic mushroom sticker that we sell. He also designed the Art by Humans sticker, which we went with more of a street level graffiti vibe for, which is really gorgeous. And he has some really cool insights in that. So we're hoping to get that out, and I hope folks will check a look on that. Finding good people creating cool stuff in indie spaces is pretty easy. All you have to do is look. And if you're looking for something specific, like if you're looking for someone who's doing more manga style, or something who's doing steampunk style or something like that, just post that question on social media, tag Sinopa Publishing or tag me personally. I'll be more than happy to address if I know anyone who's doing something in that vein with you. I'm mostly on X/Twitter is where most people follow me, but we're also on Blue Sky, where people are not so nice to me. But I mean, I think that's kind of normal. I don't think people are nice to people on Blue Sky anymore anyway, because they've run off some of the artists I work with already.
Oh, God.
I know, right? But we're also on Instagram, and I can't believe I'm going to say this. We're going to be on TikTok before the end of the month. I am not looking forward to that. I will figure it out. I will get it figured out. But yeah, Sinopa, Sinopa, and we will do that. And guys, also very important, if you like the content you're seeing, make sure you like and subscribe. Let's get his little subscriber number to bigger. Let's see if we can get him to 5,000 subs by the end of the year.
Oh my gosh, I would love that. That'd be awesome.
No, I mean, let's literally do this, guys. So take this, when you share it, say, hey, guys, the only thing they asked when they interviewed this crazy old dude in Kentucky about making comics was to like and subscribe. So like it, subscribe it, do it.
That is the important things here. It helps to bring out more of these videos. It's been a blast talking with a bunch of different comic creators, you included among those. And so make sure to look out for a lot of those different videos and different reviews and all sorts of other stuff I do. Talk about Smallville. I had a very fun recording last night where we went off the rails for like half of it. So,
I'm bad about that. Sorry, guys. I start talking and I'll be...
Oh, my gosh. I'll say it was very tame compared to what was happening last night. And so,
That's surprising. I'm like, dude, this guy won't shut up.
See, we couldn't stop talking about Lionel Luthor's hair and stuff, so...
Oh, yeah. I can see how that would get out of hand.
Yeah. So it's been a whole bit, and especially last night, it was really funny. So only find all that stuff here on the Dingus Den, everybody. But it's been great having you on, Sam. Thank you so much for joining. Until next time, do well here on the Dingus Den. Support Rayne, everybody. Bye.